there, everybody. This is John, and you're with me on my morning drive to work. Today's the eve of Super Tuesday. That would be Monday, March 5th. and had some technical difficulties on the way. So, in case you're wondering, I'm actually in my parking garage already, so I'm going to have to make this short because I'm going to have to get into work. But I just wanted to talk kind of quickly about Super Tuesday. Tomorrow is Super Tuesday. There are 10 states primaries and caucuses. There's a mixture of the two. Obviously, Mitt Romney's a front runner. Over the weekend, Mitt Romney won the Washington State caucus, and Ron Paul and Santorum, I believe, tied for second place. But that still doesn't make Ron Paul relevant in the race. But anyways, I'm not exactly sure what all is going to play out tomorrow, but I will offer this analysis. Rick Santorum is, even though he's a Catholic, which a lot of Protestants, thus the religious right, don't necessarily care for Catholics, he is talking their language, so to speak. He's getting them all bunged up about women's reproductive rights and about abortion and personhood and life begins at conception and all that happy horse crap. And so as a result, he's kind of getting some traction, I believe, with the religious right. I think I touched briefly in the last episode about the religious right and how I thought that the strategy here with them attacking women was to get that voting bloc really fired up. And I still believe that. But I believe that Rick Santorum is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that simply because he is the most Bible-thumpy, highest religiosity one of them. Mitt Romney's obviously a Mormon, so he's going to have a little bit of a tough road to hoe with the religious right because I don't know any Christians, especially the Bible thumpers, that even think Mormonism is a religion. They all think it's a cult or they have some other cockamamie idea about it. I personally think it's silly too, but I'm gonna leave religion out of the discussion because I don't necessarily think that's the only thing you need to consider, or even the most important thing to consider. I think track record is. But getting back to the point, is I think Mitt Romney's probably going to have a pretty good time tomorrow night. However, Rick Santorum, like I said, appealing to the Bible thumpers, and he's harping big time on manufacturing, even though he's full of shit, because we all know that he doesn't give two shits about unions or organized labor or any of that stuff. He's just giving lip service to it because he thinks it's a way for him to make inroads with some of the blue collar independents and some of the blue collar people that either may be disgruntled with Obama or for whatever reason just want to jump over to that side, which would be completely asinine. But then again, I mean, the Republicans are masterful at getting people to vote against their own economic best interests, so go figure. So I think the fact of the matter is you're going to see manufacturing states probably swing for Santorum, and you're going to see the rest of the states probably vote for Romney, except for probably Georgia, which may or may not go for Newt. It's his home state, so you would think if he doesn't win Georgia, it's kind of like when everybody was saying that if Mitt Romney doesn't win Michigan, he's going to be in big trouble. I think Newt Gingrich should have already gotten out of the race because his ship sailed a long time ago. That big surge he had when he was so far in the polls, once he came crashing back down to earth, I knew that was it for him. He's not going to get any more surges, I don't believe. So I think he just needs to cash out and endorse somebody. However, he's saying Georgia. I think he really ought to cash it in. I think he's saying Georgia and some other state or something like that. He's going to go even if he. And I think he's just ridiculous if he loses his own home state. He has nothing. I mean, what else is he going to have? He's not going to have anything to hang his hat on at that point. So I think any of these guys, if they don't win, especially if Mitt Romney really cleans up tomorrow night, like if it's a 8-2 or 7-3 or even 6-4, it's going to be. I mean, depending on what the makeup of those wins are, and if now if Santorum wins, I'll say if Santorum were to say win 4 and Romney 6, then yeah, Santorum, especially if Santorum gets a couple of delegate-rich states, then yeah, that would be okay for him to still stay in. But if it's a bloodbath tomorrow night and Romney's cleaning up, I mean, these guys really need to. I mean, for their sake, I don't care. I personally want it to keep going. I hope they, you know, keep. I hope it keeps fragmenting, and tomorrow night that the wins are all over the place. I even hope Ron Paul wins a state because in that way it'll still keep him relevant in some people's eyes and give him an excuse to stay in the race. Because the longer these guys stay in the race, the more money it takes from the other candidates, and the bigger the distraction is from the other candidates. So, tomorrow night I'm rooting for things to be all over the place. However, I have a feeling, based on everything that we've seen up to this point, we've been built up for these other, for Michigan, Arizona, we've been built up for some other races, and other than the hiccup where Santorum swept those three states a couple weeks back, everything has been relatively anticlimactic to this point. It's been pretty much Romney, and I mean that's fine. They can run whoever they want. Like I said before, it's going to be the sacrificial lamb because Romney's a joke candidate. I mean, when you have to spend that much money to beat some other whack job, good luck to you against Obama in the general election, and especially when you're running to appeal to people that actually are rational and sane and not the wacko party, right wing nutty teabagger party. If you're running against normal sane people like Obama, you're going to be in big trouble, especially somebody that's got a record to run on. Oh, and by the way, speaking of the Obama campaign, my wife and I did our part this weekend. We pitched in, did 2.5 hours on the phone bank over at the local, at the the Organizing for America phone bank over at the Democratic headquarters here in Lee County. And it was pretty interesting. Got a couple people that wanted to come work the phone bank next week, and got 9 different people on the phone that I actually was able to talk to out of, I believe, 56 calls. So many people not home or disconnected. But out of those 9, all 9 were in. They're voting for President Obama again, and they were pretty enthusiastic about it. I didn't get one person that was not. I mean, granted, these are people that supported Obama in '08, but based on some of the sentiment that we've heard, some people are disenchanted with Obama. And based on that, I thought, well, maybe, we'll get some people that are lukewarm or that just will say, no, I'm not supporting him this time. He didn't live up to his campaign promises. But I think a lot of people are realistic, more so than what everyone gives people credit for, because, I mean, you can look back through history, and there's really not been any president that's lived up to 100% of his campaign promises. I mean, considering the current climate that we've got going on in Washington and what Obama's had to deal with, and the approach that he took of, continuing ad nauseum to pursue a bipartisan effort, I think he's done pretty darn well. If you go to what the fuck or what the heck has Obama done so far.com, you can see a list of accomplishments, and it's a pretty lengthy list. I mean, a lot of people forget, and it's sad because, I mean, the guy deserves credit at least for what he did do. I mean, granted, he's got a lot of faults too. Um, I said that I'll be pointing out every show one thing I don't like about Obama, and I'll tell you today my dislike of Obama is his educational policy. His education secretary, Artie Duncan, is a fucking disaster. That guy's an idiot. And they're buying into this whole, they buy into the whole Michelle Reed waiting for Superman cockamamie horse shit, which is basically driving us down a road where you're tilting the playing field for charter schools and privatization of education, and that's a Republican idea. So for some of my progressive friends who want to call Obama a righty or whatever, in that particular aspect, I will agree with you. He does have a lot of right-wing ideas in terms of education, and that for that I don't care. The race to the top is a bunch of horse shit, and Artie Duncan's a fucking idiot. And I think what he needs to do, I mean, Obama had this big summit where he got together with everybody and sat down with all the dipshit Republicans and everybody during the health care debate and really went way out of his way to work with them. And what I'd like to see is this president in his second term, and I'm going to push for it. Once I'm done getting him elected, my goal is going to be holding him to a progressive agenda, and that means trying to open up his educational policy and putting it back on the table again. He needs to reevaluate his educational platform and his educational policies. What he needs to do is he needs to have one of those summits, and at that summit, he needs to have people like Diane Ravitch. If you haven't heard of Diane Ravitch, my parents are both teachers, and they're disgusted with Obama's educational policies. And Diane Ravitch, The Life and Death of the American School System, on my shredoftruth.com website, there's a banner ad on the left side. If you scroll down a little bit, you click on that link on Amazon, and you can read about that book. That book is what we should base our educational system on, because that lady is brilliant. She's actually traditionally a conservative, but she understands the value that our traditional public education system has played in our society, and wants to maintain it as it has been. But the problem is I mean, education has gotten such a bad rap because what's happened is over time you've got the constant cronyism going on in the background, and the constant message from the Republicans of our public education system is broken, we need to go to charter schools, we need to privatize education, and they keep hammering that same stupid message. And then at the same time, there's a coordinated effort across the country at the state and federal level, and at the local level too, to defund and make drastic cuts to public education. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Basically, they say that, and then they cut, and then, of course, when you have less money to deal with and less resources, your public education system is going to suffer, and that makes their case to everyone for privatizing education. Well, that's a bunch of horse shit. We all know it. If they would properly fund education, and they would quit teaching the tests, then things would be ultimately better. I mean, just unbelievably better. You'd have students that aren't just worried about their tests, and teachers that don't just dread coming to work because all they're doing is teaching to a test, or they have the specter of test score performance hanging over their head in order to get federal funding. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the one good thing Obama did with education is he's allowed states to opt out of No Child Left Behind, which is another ridiculous piece of legislation that was passed through bipartisan efforts. So there are Democrats that are at fault on that, and I'm not necessarily, there's Democrats I can't stand either. So don't think I'm just a robot for Obama and the Democratic Party, because that's not the case. I've definitely got my own opinions, and I'm really more of a 99%er, because I agree with a lot of that stuff. I don't agree with every bit of it. I don't agree with we shouldn't vote because the system's broken, or that we can get things done by osmosis, or any of those kind of things. I mean, some of the 99% Occupy stuff, there's some ideas that just aren't really realistic or pragmatic right now. I think what we need to focus on is overwhelming turnout for voting. So no matter how many voter suppression or voter ID laws they try to pass to suppress the vote or disenfranchise voters, they're still not going to win. That's number one. Number two, we've got to get through that process. We've got to get supermajorities in the House and the Senate, so that we give President Obama people in the Congress that will put legislation on his desk that will make meaningful reform. And I know he'll sign it, because it's, for one thing, he doesn't have to worry about re-election in the second term, and for the other thing is, if you get people in there that make the case, like Bernie Sanders or Alan Grayson, people that really are looking out for the best interest of us, the little guys, he's not going to be able to not sign it. He's not going to veto campaign finance reform. I can tell you that right now. He's not going to veto taking money out of lobbying if that were put on his desk. I know he wouldn't. I mean, it would be, he's not about, I mean, now, and if he does, then, lesson learned. But honestly, I can tell you right now, you need to vote for Obama. I don't care if you're 99%er or who you are. You cannot vote for anybody but Obama, if for no other reason than for Supreme Court justice appointments alone. But beyond that, think about this for a minute. If you elect Ron Paul or some Republican, I mean, you think Ron Paul's the best of the bunch in the Republican Party. I used to think that, but you got to read his platform. You got to read my editorial on my site, Let's Play Name That Candidate. It's called Let's Play Name That Candidate. It'll be right there on the front page in the editorial section under My Thoughts Exactly on my website, shredoftruth.com. Go there, read that. I've gone through his platform, and I've gone through and analyzed it all. And I can tell you right now, if you elect him or any other Republican, there will be zero chance of getting any of the things done that the 99% Occupy movement wants to get done. Campaign finance reform, lobbyist reform, none of that ever. You will never get anything done. You can guarantee it. You can take it to the bank. You can take it to Bank of America or Wells Fargo. It ain't going to happen. So at least Obama gives us a chance. And based on how he has governed thus far, granted his inexperience and the bipartisanship crap earlier on in his presidency, I think kind of hurt him with the base, with us progressives and us lefties. But he's really hitting it hard now. The populist message is out. I think he now realizes, you know what, can't work with these guys, so I'm just going to take matters into my own hands. Now, you could say, well, you should have been doing that all along, and I agree. But he ran on a platform of trying to change the way things work in Washington. I knew it was going to be a futile effort, but he had to get it out of his system, and at least, nobody can say he didn't try. So, granted, I have issues with him. My issue today is education. I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast, but I got to get going to work. So it's been great talking with you guys this morning. Make sure and shoot me an email at mymorningdrive@shredoftruth.com. If you want me to give you a call and we'll talk about things while I'm broadcasting, I can do that. If you've got a topic you'd like me to discuss, or something I missed, or something I was wrong about, shoot me an email. Or just get on the site and click on contact us, and you can shoot me a message there as well. You guys have a great Monday. I'll be talking to you tomorrow morning. Super Tuesday, March 6th, tomorrow. I'm out.